Hi guys, I'm Lawrence and this is Planet Moonshine, the channel where we use home distilling techniques in a professional microbrewery. And today, in this video, we're going to be making some NGS, Neutral Grain Spirit. So, you might be wondering what that is. Well, it's what you use to make gin. This is also going to be a spirit run. So we're going to be taking some low wines that we've previously distilled and we're going to be turning them into neutral grain spirit as part of a stripping run. So this video is part of a series which we started a little while ago on turning old beer into new spirits. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But for now, we just need to know that we have a lot of these low wines, which we distilled from old beer. And now we're going to take those low wines, put them in the still, and turn them into neutral grain spirit. So if that's something that's of interest to you, stick around. So, what is the old beer? Why do we have it? And what are we trying to do with it? Well, when COVID came along, we had to slow our production right down. And we couldn't sell the beer that we already had. So a lot of beer was left in my storeroom and it just went past its sell-by date. What we're trying to do now is see if we can just strip the alcohol out of that old beer and reclaim it and use it for something that can be sold. So what do we want to make with all of that old beer? Well, the answer is I want to make two products. I want to make a whiskey and I want to make a gin. If we look at the whiskey, it's a relatively simple process. We take our low wines, we set up our still in pot still mode, and we simply run it slowly, make our cuts, and then we have some White Dog whiskey and we age it or not. To make the gin, there's another step in the process. So we have to take our low wines and make something called Neutral Grain Spirit, NGS. What does that actually mean? Neutral refers to the flavor. It shouldn't have any excessive flavorings, so that all the flavor that goes into your final product comes from the infusions that you put into it. Grain, it should be made from grains. There's no rule that says it has to be, but most gin distillers make their gin from NGS, Neutral Grain Spirit. So that implies that the base mash needs to be a grain mash. Well, we're using old beer, so it definitely is an all grain mash. Spirit, obviously, that refers to the fact that it's a spirit, but normally it's a very high ABV spirit, somewhere between 94 and 98% alcohol by volume. So a very, very pure, very neutrally flavored, all grain spirit of high ABV. That's what NGS is. That's what you make gin out of. So after we've made our NGS, the final step will be to make gin from it. And in a future video, we're going to look at gin recipe development, because what we don't want to do is take large quantities of NGS, throw it in the still and hope that our recipe is right the first time. So we have to distill in smaller quantities, test our recipe, make sure we've got the flavor right, and that's the topic of another video. So doing today's job, taking our low wines and turning them into neutral grain spirit. For this, we need to set the still up in reflux mode, and we want to have a lot of reflux action. We want to get all of those bubble plates bubbling away nicely, and we want to run the still really slowly so that we get that high ABV and the rectification that takes place inside the still with all that reflux going on gives us the neutrality of our high ABV NGS. So let's see how we get on. Okay guys, So we're just preparing for our spirit run. I got to tell you, I'm pretty excited. Things we've just done off camera. I cleaned the still. After all the stripping runs that we did, there was a fair amount of gunk in there. So it was just dismantling the column, separating each piece, giving it a good washout, sticking a brush in there if we needed to, and then cleaning out the inside of the still, which was the worst coated, as you might expect, with little crusty bits. So just, get in there with a scrubbing brush and some water and just scrub it out. So that was the prep work we did off camera. Since then, I've reassembled the still. It's back into reflux mode. I've got my sight glass, 4 bubble plates, a deflegmator, and then, of course, the product condenser and the parrot. So we're all set up now to do the spirit run. We haven't yet charged the still. We'll do that in a sec. This is what we're going to charge the still with. Here I've got 30 litres of low wines that we distilled from our old beer. So I think we're ready to go. Okay guys, so I'm just going to check the ABV of that mixture that I've just put into the still. This is a refractometer for alcohol, and we're just going to take a sample. And let's see what we say. So we have got a refractometer reading of about 32 and a half, maybe 32 and a half ABV. So I think we can seal that up and turn the power on. Okay, so we're just going to turn the power on, and at the moment we're just going to run it at full power just while the still heats up. Okay guys, so whilst the still's been heating up, I have been preparing glass jars, and at the moment I have got 10 jars at 400 mils, 3 jars at 600 mils, a couple of smaller jars at 250 mils each, and the jars that I started with the low wines in, which are 2 litre jars and 4 litre jars. So what we need to do now is understand if that's enough jars. Probably I should have worked that out before. So using an online alcohol calculator, assuming that we're going to collect at around 94% alcohol by volume, and with 30 litres in the still, and with the starting strength of that alcohol at 32%, the calculator says I should get around 1 litre of heads, around 8 litres of hearts, and about 1.5 litres of tails. So I should have enough jars to manage all of that, and even to take my 4 shots in these first 2 tiny little jars. I should think the 4 shots won't be much more than 250 mils for this run, and after that we'll start collecting as heads, and we'll see how we make the progression from heads to hearts. So join me at the still. Okay guys, so still at half power, more or less. I've just turned on the deflegmator, so we've got some water flowing through that now. The head temperature still hasn't shifted. It's around 30 degrees, which is what it is in the brewery today. Kind of a hot day here in Spain. But the still itself is starting to get kind of warm up here at the top. That feels like around 50 degrees. And down below, I'd say it's closer to 60, so we should start to see some action fairly soon. Our first collection jars are ready for when the spirit starts to flow. 4 shots jars first, and then some jars for the heads. And the final part of my preparation here, we have a glass for sampling, we have a bottle of water for proofing things down, we've got a stainless steel pipette for taking the samples, we've got ourselves a pen for marking the jars with numbers, and we've got our pad ready for taking notes. And if we take a close look at that, what we can see is that we've got numbered jars, place to put the size of the jar, the ABV, the head temperature, and our all-important sensory notes. Okay guys, well, the sound the still is making has just started to change. It's gone a little quieter and just starting to feel a little warmth rising up through the column. So we really should start to see action on the head temperature any second. And I've turned off the deflegmator again, just so that we can see when that begins to happen. Then we'll turn it back on again. Okay, so this is the top bubble plate, and you can see there's bubbling action taking place there. Third bubble plate, we've got a good bit of reflux and some bubbling action. Second bubble plate, and the bottom bubble plate has got some pretty good action going on. So I'd say our still's more or less in balance. The head temperature has dropped to around 55, so the deflegmator's probably running a little bit too effectively at the moment, so we're just going to turn that down. Okay, so with the power now at about half, our head temperature running about 77, 78. We have got some good reflux action taking place throughout the still. And so we're just starting to collect our foreshots at about 94 degrees ABV. Okay guys, so jar number 1 has just come off the still. Oh, I gotta tell you, that really smells very much of acetone. I'm just gonna, just in the interests of science, that stuff is straight up nasty. And it really quite burns the tongue, and I ain't going to be putting any of that into my hearts or anywhere else. I think this is just going to be used for cleaning engines. Okay guys, so jars number 1 and 2 are off the still. Jar number 1 was straight up acetone. Jar number 2 was kind of a mixture of acetone and headsiness, very, very prickly on the tongue. I did proof some down, I did taste it. It wasn't very nice. So I don't think either of these are going to find their way into anything. They're both going to be chucked away, but that should be, well, about 300 mils should be my foreshots, so we should have a little bit of heads in there as well, which is more or less what I tasted. Let's see how jar number 3 works out. This is jar number 3. I've smelt and tasted this one. I'm getting fake estuary flavors, like fruit, but kind of like high-pitched fruit. I know you can't apply that term to it, but it's very sharp, fruity flavor and still very prickly on the tongue. So this is definitely still very headsy. But we have collected 900 mils, and the alcohol calculator said we should get about a litre of heads. So we must be about 900 mils, so yeah, we must be getting fairly close to the end. We'll see how jar number 4 is, and then I think around jar number 5 we might be starting to hit hearts, but we'll see, because this isn't a number crunching exercise. It's just data really to help inform future runs. This is really a sensory exercise. Okay, so I'll check back in a bit. Don't worry, we won't do this for every jar that comes off the still. Okay guys, so this is jar number 4. I've got some in here which I've proofed down with a little bit of water. Let's see. So all that fake fruity estuary, high sort of fruit flavor seems to have mostly gone. There is still some of it there. On the tongue, it's still fairly prickly, and still some of that fake fruity esteriness. No hint of the acetone at all. It is still a little bit prickly. So we'll see how we get on with jar number 5. That one's good. Okay guys, so at the end of jar 6, I decided to take a look at my reflux ratio. So I turned off my product condenser and examined the amount of liquid that was coming out that was just through the deflegmator. And I came to the conclusion it wasn't enough. So I opened the valve to the deflegmator a little bit more to get a slightly better flow of water through that, and then put the product condenser back on pretty quickly. It was a good idea. What happened was the head temperature adjusted itself back to 78 degrees, and the alcohol by volume rose to 94. So we're now collecting a higher, purer grade of alcohol. Also, I did a naughty thing. You should never do this at home, guys. I had to go out on a short errand. So I put a big 2-liter collection jar underneath the output spout and disappeared for 15 minutes while I had to attend to something important. I don't advise you guys do that. But when I came back and tasted what's coming off on jar number 7, wow, it's pure, it's very, very neutral, and it's very high ABV, 94%. Obviously, I had to proof that down to taste it, but it tastes great. So from what I can tell today, the answer to my question, can I get neutral grain spirit, seems to be yes. Hippie! Okay guys, jar number 9 is on the still now. And, well, I'm just starting to get a little bit worried. So far we must have collected 2, 4, 5, 5.5 litres of hearts. And although the calculator said I should expect something around 8 litres of hearts, I'm going to take this jar very slowly. It's
It's a 2-litre jar, and I've been sampling it at shorter intervals just in case we're going to start to have a problem. So the head temperature's set at about 79 degrees. We're collecting at about 91% ABV, and our jar number 9 is just approaching the 1 litre mark. So we're going to take a sample.
Okay guys, so this is the sample that we have from jar number 9 at about the 1 litre mark. So let's take a taste. Smells clean. Well, if there is any tails in there, it's the merest hint. So I think we're still okay for now. Okay guys, so we're on jar number 12 now. Started collecting again in these 400 ml jars because partway through jar number 9, I thought I was starting to detect a faint hint of tails. But I don't think it was. I think it was really just what's starting to emerge now is a more grainy flavor, a sort of a wheatiness is coming through. And I think it's just the grains starting to show their character in this spirit. So we're still collecting at 91% ABV, and jar number 12 is about half full now. So we're going to keep a very sharp eye out for tails and keep collecting in small jars, and we'll see where we end up. The sun's setting now. It's about 8 p.m. We haven't hit the tails yet. So my guess is we've got at least another hour at the still. We've been running the still since about 3 o'clock. So yeah, it's taking a lot longer than the stripping runs. Okay guys, so we're coming to the end of this stripping run. Somewhere around jar number 14, we definitely turned a corner into tails. 15, even more so. Jar 16, straight up wet dog and horrible, nasty toe tastes. I'm collecting jar 17 just for shits and giggles, but after that, I'm going to shut down the still, and whatever's left in the bottom can be added to the next stripping run, and we'll see if we can get the rest of the alcohol out of it that way. Okay guys, see you tomorrow for the cuts. So it's the day after our spirit run. I've got my jars lined up here on the bar. I've got my big old 20-litre pot to put my blend into. I have got a jar with some water in it for proofing down, and I have got my tasting glass. I've got my notes from last night, and I've got another page ready to receive the notes I'm going to make today while I'm making these cuts. These jars have rested overnight. They were covered with paper towel so that they could breathe, but hopefully keep some of the bugs out. And we're ready to start making our cuts. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the received wisdom of people who've gone before, and we're going to start in the middle of our hearts with jars that we know are definitely good and safe, and then we're going to work one jar up the line towards heads, one jar down the line towards tails, and we'll decide what's going to make it into the final product. So let's get started. So jar number 8 was right in the middle of hearts. That should be this fellow right here. So we're going to just take a sample, pop it in there, proof it down with an equal amount of water, and we'll see what we've got. Yeah, so There's definitely nothing wrong with any of that. The aroma I get coming off that is fruity, a little bit floral, very, very clean. That is fantastic. I'm really, really happy with that. So that one is definitely all going into the blending jar. Fantastic. Thank you, jar number 8. We said we work our way up the line. So next is jar number 7. It was our first large collecting jar. Oh, I should make some notes. Definitely getting some apples and some floral flavors retronasally. Very, very clean. Lovely. So jar number 7 can join jar number 8. So we'll go one jar down to jar number 9. Alright guys, so jar number 9, according to my notes, I put DWR, Danger Will Robinson. This was because we'd been collecting hearts for quite a while and I was worried that it was going to be starting to get a bit tailsy. And in fact, at 1200 mils, we stopped collecting in this jar because I thought I detected a hint of tails. Later on, I changed my mind about that. But let's see. Certainly smells clean. It's absolutely fine. It's definitely going in. But what I'm starting to get coming through is some graininess. So we're going to put that as a little bit grainy and still a bit fruity and clean. So we're having all of jar number 9. Jar number 6. So that's got a soft fruitiness about it. Not as powerfully fruity. So sort of pears. Still it's a little floral, but not as much. It's definitely clean and it's definitely going in the mix. Okay, jar number 10. Definitely getting a wheaty, barley flavour from that. And it's going in. Time to go to jar number 5. Now, jar number 5, I marked as apples, grain, a hint of heads, but okay. Yeah, and it's definitely got that slightly headsy aroma. But in the mouth, it's very fruity. Not really any prickliness. I think we're going to pop it in. So jar number 11. In the mouth, it's got that graininess and a little bit of sort of earthiness about it, but I'm not detecting anything bad in that. So jar number 11, which means we're up to jar number 4. And there's definitely some of that fake fruitiness. Can smell a hint of heads on that. And there's just a hint of prickliness and heat on the tongue. It's not excessive. I'm going to put the lid on that one. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put it here slightly out of line as a questionable jar. A jar we'll look at later on. So jar number 12. So I said hint of tails about this jar in my notes from last night. I can certainly smell a tiddly bit of that. And it's there. There's a slight grunginess about it. Sort of coating the back of your palate. You get a little bit of that wet dog. So I'm gonna pull that one out of line as well. Jar number 3. Now in theory this should be straight up headsy. Yeah, those fake fruity estery flavors are there, like boiled sweets that haven't been made with juice, you know? It doesn't taste terribly awful, but on the tongue it's more biting, and it's definitely not as pleasant to drink because you've got that sort of the heat from that. So we're going to mark that as hot, headsy, and that, my friend, is going straight in this jar. This is my faints jar. Further on down the line, we're at jar number 13. Now, this is interesting. My notes from last night said that this was fruity, but no tails. Let's see. Well, on the nose, definitely getting a little bit of that tailsiness, but I can see what I mean about the fruitiness. But yeah, the tailsiness seems to have gone out of this. But the lid's going back on. And it's going to join jar number 12. So we're up to jar number 2, guys. Jar number 2 I marked as headsy, acetone, and prickly. Oh my God. Do you know, I'm not even going to taste that. I can straight up smell the acetone on this. It's not overpoweringly there, but it's definitely there. But just inhaling it is sort of like burning my nose. So we're not going to do anything with this. It isn't going into the faints jar though, guys. I have another jar. 4 shots. Poison. That's where this is going. We're down to jar number 14 in the tails. So I can smell the tails in this again. It's there, but it's not overpowering at all. It is just a hint. It's going into the questionable queue. Now, jar number 1, right up at the end. This one, yeah, it's straight up acetone and meths. You can smell it. Don't need to go near this. We know where it's going. So, jar number, 15. Now I marked this one as fruity but tailsy. Oh, yeah. Tail smell, very strong. too tailsy. Absolutely too tailsy. In fact, the longer it stays in my mouth, the more tailsy it becomes. So this is going into the faints jar. Now I haven't got any more at the top end, so we're going on to jar number 16. Oh, do you know, I don't even need to taste that. This is straight up wet dog and toes, and it's going into the faints jar, no question. Jar number 17. Yeah, this is gonna be grosso in the extremo. Oh my God, that smells horrible. This is in the interests of science, guys, just for you. I know what it's gonna be. God, that's awful. It's straight up ass crack, toes, wet dog, cardboard, all the horrible things you can imagine. You do not want to be drinking that. So this is going in the faints jar. So that's it, guys. That's all our jars initially tested, and we've identified a few questionable jars, which we are going to come back to. We'll do that next. But some of you might be asking, why did I bother putting jar number 17 that's so disgusting in the faints jar? And the answer is because it's got 58% alcohol by volume in it. So what I'm going to do is strip that out again when I distill the faints, and we'll get the usable alcohol back out of it and leave all the horrible flavour behind, hopefully. Number 2 is take a sample of what we've got in here, and we'll just give it a little assessment. So what have we got? That's lovely. So, what have we got in there? Floral aromas like meadow flowers. We've got apples, we've got pears. We've got a lovely fresh fruitiness to it, but it's really, really nice. No prickliness. Just a lovely, clean, pure spirit. I'm very happy with that. Very happy with that. So that brings us to the questionable jars and what we're going to do. What are we going to do with these questionable jars? Well, it's a question. So we've got 3 at the tailsy end and 1 at the headsy end. I know. Let's make up a tincture. So guys, what we've done is we've taken a sample from our hearts pot and a very small amount of jars 12, 13 and 14, and we're going to take another little bit out of jar number 4. Now we're going to proof that lot down. So it smells great. I don't believe that's detracting at all from what went before. It certainly feels a little bit warmer from what's in jar number 4. But I'm not picking up even the slightest hint of tailsiness from these other jars. Yeah, even on the retronasal action, not getting anything bad off that. So, do you know what? They're all going in. So, everything's in. Let's give it a little bit of a stir around. That's probably unnecessary. And sample time. On the nose, it's lovely. It's picked up a little bit more graininess, but no tails. It's picked up a little bit more warmth, but not headsy at all. Not prickly, not fighting or biting. So I'm really happy with that. So I'm going to do some maths and we'll see what we've got. So we come to next steps. What are we going to do now? Well, we've got our 8.4 litres of high-proof grain neutral spirit, and what we need to do now is develop gin recipes. I'm looking to make 2 good gin recipes. One that's fairly citrusy and one that's fairly, I'm going to say spicy, but not in the sense of hot pepper. So I've got a little copper alembic still, which we're going to put small batches of this grain neutral spirit through with varying botanicals until we hit on the 2 recipes that I really want to make. And then of course we've got to look at making a production run with the rest of this grain neutral spirit and seeing what we get. So in summary, what did we do in this video? We took some low wines that we'd made from old beer that I was otherwise just going to throw away. We stripped all the alcohol out of that in some stripping runs, and we put those low wines through our still with the intention of making a grain neutral spirit. We prepped the still for a reflux spirit run, and we ran the still in reflux mode. We collected our jars, made notes as we went, rested them overnight so that they could breathe, came back today and did our blending and made our cuts, took some more notes and summarized what we've done. If you like this content, please give us a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. And if there's anything you want to say, any ideas you've got for me, any mistakes that you think I've made, let me know. Let me know. I'm open to that stuff. So please make a comment down below. If you want to know what's happening next, our gin recipe development video will be coming out fairly soon. Then we'll be doing a production run of gin making. Then we'll be making some whiskies out of some more old beer. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe, ring the bell, and you'll get notified when those videos are released. So that's it for this video. Thank you very, very much for watching and for watching all the way to the end. So keep on chilling and keep on distilling. Peace out.